Hi guys, my name is Dijon Rice and I am in the positive group for week 3 discussion 2. Okay, so let's get started. The first question is, what are the sources of power often seen in organization? Well, power can be used in organizations to encourage individuals and groups to act in accordance with the company's goals and objectives. So, the key construct of the French and Raven's model of 5 bases of social power, which occupy various structures of influence, include cohesive power, legitimate power, referent power, expert power, and last but not least, reward power. And I'm going to go ahead and sit here and talk to you about all the different ones. So, the first source of power that we're going to talk about is the cohesive power. Cohesive power, which involves a dependent relationship between the driving agent and the recipients of force. So, an example of this would be like a manager or a physician, someone higher up, abusing their power by consistently reporting another employee. So, with that being an example, another example could be in the book with the One Health, the physician didn't like the way that the nurse was treating their patient, and so the physician says that it's neglect towards that patient, and if that nurse doesn't start treating the patient the way that he wants the nurse to treat the patient, then he's going to just keep reporting her, and that's actually kind of a cohesive power. The second source of power is legitimate power. Legitimate power derives from the authority and social and cultural norms. So, an example of this would have to do with like their culture's value. For instance, in some cultures, elders and men are respected and are not to be questioned. In other cultures, I know I read in the book that when women actually like really listen to you and give you really great eye contact, that is them being respectful. The third source of power is referent power, and referent power derives from the driving agent of the person's charisma and its effect on the recipient of influence. So the recipient's attribution of prestige to the driving agent leads to a desire to please or emulate the agent. So an example of this would be if a nurse or if a physician thinks highly of another nurse or physician, they're going to respect them and actually have others respect them as well. The fourth source of power is expert power. Expert power derives from the recipient's perception of knowledge processed by the driving agent of force. This power is dealing with not only the physician but the nurse and the patient and the attorney. So for an example of this, it would be like the physician and the One Health, for example, didn't like the way that the nurse was treating their patient, so the physician can keep reporting that nurse for negligence, and the attorney, will recognize the physician for they will have like more extensive credentials. And lastly but not least, the last source of power that I'm going to talk to you about is reward power. And reward power provides an incentive of the person's behavior, expecting to receive a reward or recognition. So an example of this was also like in the book, maybe if the physician didn't just say, I'm going to keep reporting you, but instead if the nurse actually went ahead and changed what they were doing, then maybe the physician would just praise her by saying, hey, thank you, you did a great job, whatnot, and not actually report and abuse his power. The second part of this discussion was, what are the positive impacts on the organizations when its members exercise power and play political games with Mitzberg's political game playing framework? So, Henry Mitzberg developed an elaborate model of organization behavior as a series of potential games and players, or influencers, that represent different external and internal interest groups seeking to control organizations, decisions, and actions. There are actually 13 games, but I'm not going to cover all 13 of them. Instead, I'm just going to explain to you the one that I feel that can be positive in this. And the one that I actually kind of feel would be positive in this would be the alliance building, because I kind of agree with that. It's basically just bringing in um, other companies or social media. And so, like, an example of this would actually be like with social media, for example, Cerner, where I work, they actually use LinkedIn. And I, as a senior at the time, had to get the LinkedIn account, and I actually was hired over LinkedIn because you can put your resume and everything else on there, and that not only helps Cerner have other employees, but it also gets Cerner's names out there. Also, to get things done and to be recognized and rewarded for this ability, health professionals need to develop strategies from gaining organizational power throughout their careers and using that power wisely and constructively. So, an example of that would be like sponsorships, where I know like I'm at the low end of the totem pole because I just kind of started, and with that, I can actually use my sponsorship by asking someone who is higher than me, like my manager or my boss, if they can mentor me to help me further my career as well. Thank you guys.